here we are at the end of 2024, and I've been meeting with clients. I'm like, look, had a good year here. Now, you're going to buy a car. This is the time we want to do that. Do we need to kick some money off of what you've made and put it over here in a money market so you can use it into next year?
Yep.
I mean, that's proactive planning there.
What do we do to end the year strong and start fresh on the right path for the year ahead? We'll be talking about it today with Chris McIntire, president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services. Chris, we always appreciate the time and perspective. And this time of year, I think people are thinking about their finances a little bit more and trying to get ahead in the year ahead. So we'll talk about what we need to do for that effort and for those goals on today's Game Plan for Retirement. Chris, always a pleasure to have you with us.
Yes, and when we're talking about, going forward and whatnot, you notice I'm wearing an Ohio State sweater here. So, and after, losing to Michigan 4 years in a row, we are ever so hopeful. So don't give up hope, folks. Let's talk about 2025 and ending the year strong. So that would be a couple of good wins for our college teams and our pro teams as well, too.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to talk about finance, but always a little comment about sports and what's going on in the world around us. That's a big one when we talk about the rivalries, right? And always goals for the right teams to win, but the main goal is for us to win financially. And a lot of resolutions are made in that effort. But if you really want to make progress, you need to get a plan together. And that's exactly what Chris McIntire has done for so many proactive savers and investors throughout Northwest Ohio. And if you would like to take advantage of the opportunity to get your game plan for retirement, pick up the phone, give a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. Chris, there's an old saying of the overly content and complacent, the less than motivated, that it is what it is. And that saying has always bothered me, right? You got to start from where you are at because you are where you are, but things can always be improved.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, by an inch, it's a cinch, or, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And, sometimes you can be very overwhelmed, no question about it. And, in going slow. So first step is, if you don't have a monthly budget, don't know what you're spending, maybe that's the first thing that you come up with. Say, look, how much are we spending? And, and that's something my wife and I discuss as well, too, because, we have a pretty modest income. We don't really worry about what the price of gas is, but if we were going to retire tomorrow, we'd certainly want to know, look, what do we really have going out that's a must? And I mean, I read a lot of some good articles in the paper as well, and some of the things we've talked about is like cleaning up old subscriptions. It's like, we probably have a Netflix subscription, and I don't think I've ever been on Netflix, and but some of the magazines that we get anymore, it's like American Express, I'm getting hit with, mags.com, which is magazine subscriptions. Man, are they hard to cancel these days. So, I mean, all those little $20 things add up to a couple $100 a month, and, you got to pay taxes to earn that money to pay that. So it's more than 200.
Yeah, and let those add up month after month, year after year. And Chris, even small changes could make a big impact in the long run.
Yeah, they certainly can. And, I was making a joke yesterday where, we got some new leases we're signing and all that on the offices and all that. And I said, the one gentleman belongs to some of the clubs I belong to. It's like, yeah, I said it'd be nice to go to some of these clubs that we pay all the memberships to. And, we're just busy. We lead very busy lives. And for Robin and I, we typically leave town to get away from everything because, we're here. And when you're self-employed, you need to step away from it. So everybody's got their own innuendos that they deal with and whatnot. But again, Peter, so forming that budget, maybe that's the first step. Okay?
Yeah.
And then the contributions you're putting into your retirement accounts, are you putting in the maximum that you can put in or the bare minimum? 401k contributions, are you putting in, you can put in a significantly amount of more money in a 401k than you can an IRA. And so if you do have that discretionary income coming in, maybe you up that contribution. that's that forced savings, and it comes out of your paycheck. So you don't have to worry about really being the budgeter. Like that's how most people who are working pay their income taxes. Can you imagine what our income tax debacle would look like if everybody had to mail checks in like the people that are self-employed? It just comes out of your paycheck, and so it's oblivious. But that's also a benefit when it comes to putting money into those 401ks, because it comes out of your paycheck before it hits your checking account. If that makes sense to you.
Yeah, and Chris, just a kind of heads up, we've heard the announcements that for 2025, the contribution limits for 401k is actually going to increase by an additional $500, while the IRA contribution limits are going to stay the same as they have been for 2024. Only $7,000 into those IRAs if you are under 50, 8,000 if you are over 50, but up to $23,500 into the 401k. So much higher limits there on the employer sponsored plan. And that's one of those things that we need to double check and review and make sure we're taking maximum advantage of every opportunity. And that's something that can help us not only get a fresh start, but really get ahead over the course of time, is taking advantage where we can. And again, if you'd like to review to make sure you are maximizing every opportunity, pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. Chris, if we're trying to get a fresh start, and head in the right direction, I sort of think of this as like we need to find where we are, the little dot on the map that says you are here. I remember going to shopping malls once upon a time. It seems like a long time ago, but if I wanted to buy something at a particular store, I would look at the map, I'd find where the store was, but I'd need to know where I was at in reference. So the analogy here, if we had a financial map, do you think that most people could point to where they are or really have a gauge of where they are starting without really kind of circling the wagons and doing a detailed review?
That's a great point you bring up, buddy. And I would say it like this: they either know exactly where they are and they're spot on, or they don't really pay any attention and they hope and pray it'll work out. There's not really much in the middle there for some reason. It's kind of like President Trump. You either like him or you don't like him. Let's be honest. There's nobody that says, he's okay. You either like that guy or you don't, plain and simple. And that's the only comparison I could think of on the spot there, folks. And, by and large, I favor the man in orange hair anyway. So laugh with me. Laugh
Yeah,
with me.
absolutely. Yeah. But that's important, right? Knowing where we are is the first step in getting where we want to go. So in mapping out our financial plans and projections, Chris, it is important to kind of back up from a 30,000-foot view, review and assess. And there are sometimes opportunities like we talked about with maximizing 401k or IRAs, but maybe several other items that we can discover in just assessing where we are now before we even get into the proactive planning.
Yeah, exactly. And,
You
starting
spoke
there.
about budgeting, for example, is a big one that comes to my mind. I don't think most people know how much they're spending.
Yeah, and I look at as many times that Amazon guy hits my driveway, and that's like, honey, but making a joke there, guys. So
Chris never orders from Amazon, folks, by the way.
not
No
like she
Netflix,
does,
no
man.
Amazon. He's never even been on. What are those things, right, Chris?
That's right. And again, all the business stuff flows through Amazon as well for us. So yeah, to be fair to happy wife, happy life there, honey. I love you. But you're right. Budgeting is typically step number one, maximizing those contributions. And let's not forget HSA accounts, health savings accounts. That's something that's very important to max out as well. The third point might be, what is your effective tax rate? What are you effectively paying on every dollar you earn? We have a progressive income tax system here where, some of the money, if you're married filing jointly for about basically the first $30,000, you don't pay any income tax. The next 20 some thousand, you pay 10. Above that, up to about 100,000 for 2025, you pay 12 and then 22. But effectively, what is every dollar being taxed at? And most people don't know that. If you do TurboTax on your own, it kind of spits it out for you automatically. So, many people think that they're paying 25% tax on everything. And, and in all likelihood, if you're, I just had a prospective client in the office and they earned $180,000 and their effective tax rate was 13%,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
don't have a tax problem,
No,
right?
not terrible. But I bet like Chris, within a relatively close margin, if you ask somebody how much do you have in retirement savings, they could tell you within maybe ten to $50,000 the ballpark balance for most people. But if you ask them how much are you going to have to pay in taxes on that account over your lifetime, I don't think anybody really has a good handle on that question.
Yeah, and they probably don't know how much money they can safely draw out of that big number that they have, And if it's a million and a half dollar IRA or even 700,000, we're not here to pick and choose numbers, but if you got $1 million IRA account, what is, the way you have it invested, what's the safe withdrawal rate, right? I mean, if you're in 100% in Nvidia and tech stocks, the Magnificent Seven, for example, those aren't income generating stocks. If you're in a preferred stock ETF that spins off a 6.5% dividend, you can spend off 6.5% without getting into the principal. So, in utility stocks, things like that, bonds, the income generation number is very important as the account size is.
Yep. And I think that Chris, people might be able to tell you that account size within a closer percentage of what they are spending on a monthly basis. So again, kind of getting back to the basics here, controlling what we can control, right? Is that we can't control the contribution limits. We can't control the tax rates, none of us individually, but we can control how much we're spending on a monthly basis. We can control how much we are contributing where we've got those opportunities available to us.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. It's not what we know for sure. It's what we know for sure that we don't know is where you get into trouble, right?
Yep.
Yep.
And we need to back up, Chris, and define our general approach to planning. I think is important, right? Get an overview of what we are doing, what is the approach, how much risk are we taking, what accounts are most advantageous for us to make those contributions to, or if we are already retired, withdrawals from, right? There is a proper order of operations in order to get the most optimized outcome when it comes to finance.
Yeah, your math teacher would love to hear you say the order of operations
Yeah,
right now, buddy. And
Pedimus. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I loved algebra class.
yep, I did too. Yep, and we just gave an example of algebra. What is this safe dollar amount you can pull out of that portfolio? Solving for the unknown. That's algebra. Anyway, so as we move on there, Peter, we talk about the safe withdrawal rates. Solving for some of the unknowns on knowing the budget, the tax rate, but also that Roth conversion side of things. What bucket should people be putting the money into? The taxable bucket, the tax deferred bucket, the tax free bucket, and not they all have their advantages here. We're not saying, hey, run out and cash in your IRA and convert it to a Roth, right? I have money in many different buckets for different tax purposes as we grow as adults. We may have somebody listening to the show right now that has a significant income, above average, and so, putting money into 401ks and whatnot and deferring the taxes now makes perfect sense for them. We may have some people right now that have, $60,000 of income in retirement and they're doing fine. And a big fat IRA, it's like, all right, well, maybe they're ideal candidates to be doing some conversions into those IRAs. Again, knowing and understanding that tax situation is crucial as well. One of the most important things, as you look into your retirement, because not everybody's going to spend every last dollar they have. They're going to leave money behind for the legacy. Okay. Do you want to leave your children tax-free money or taxable money at a tax rate that is unknown and the distributions that will be forced out to them when they inherit IRAs?
I appreciate you mentioning, Chris, that it's specific, that it's a case by case basis on the question of doing the Roth conversions or the Roth contributions. But I know that we have talked for several years on the program here about the value of doing those Roth contributions and Roth conversions and the tax-free benefit of the growth and the income and the inheritance from those accounts, and that you've been a self-proclaimed tax geek in helping people get a lot of money moved over or contributed to that Roth side of things in the several recent years in planning. So, all that said, are there any general rules of thumb or things that we should know and be aware of if considering our approach to Roth and tax management?
Yeah, so one would be contributions, the other is conversions. Okay. So you can only contribute to a Roth IRA if you are working and have wages. Okay. So, and then you can only make contributions based upon how much income you have. There are cutoffs. Okay. So I always say it this way in the classes that we do at the local colleges here is not everyone can contribute, anyone can convert a traditional IRA or a 401k into a Roth IRA. So not everybody can contribute, but anybody can convert. And again, thanks, Peter, for highlighting. Look, this is case by case, and it's not, we don't do wholesale, $200,000 conversions. A lot of times it's $5,000 to $50,000. Those are our common conversions out of an IRA to a Roth IRA, because we have to watch some of the tax, what I want to call them, pitfalls, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to, if somebody's not paying tax on Social Security, do we really want to make that happen? That's kind of a double taxation. So, and what I mean by that is, let's say we convert 50,000 from an IRA into a Roth IRA, that's a $50,000 taxable event, but it might cause $25,000 of their Social Security to become taxable. So now we're paying tax on 75,000. So that would be the pitfall. The other one would be, if somebody had a higher income earner, for example, in retirement, they pull a lot of money out, and we did a Roth conversion and it bumped them over the threshold, and now their Medicare premiums double.
Mm.
Instead of $175 a month, or I think next year it's going to be 185, maybe it's $300 a month. So you gotta walk that balance there, and scrutinize everything that you're doing here pretty carefully.
Not just the tax on the conversion or the contribution, but the compounding impacts, the double, triple, quadruple whammy effects on Social Security, on Medicare, and then Chris, capital gains tax rates are determined by other amounts of income as well, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Lots of little pitfalls to pay attention to on the tax side of things there. We typically want to max out the 12% tax bracket. That's where we go. We don't want people who are, don't want to go into the 22% bracket if they're paying at 12 right now.
That's one of the biggest jumps that we have in the tax brackets and that progressive tax system, right? Moving from
Oh,
12 to 22 is a big jump.
yeah, you're absolutely right. Yep, that's a huge jump right there. And, as we're talking these taxes here, it's probably safe to say we're going to be hearing about this. Will the Trump tax cuts get extended?
Right.
Because if not, the 12 goes to 15%. So I would think that has the possibility. They don't know if they're going to try and do it in one of those continuing resolutions that's happening as we're recording the show right now. We probably won't know the result by the time everybody listens to us today. But are they going to do that first thing out of the gate, or catch it a little bit later in the year here?
Yeah. Well, again, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking with Chris McIntire, president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services. We're talking about finishing strong, starting fresh, how to get off on the right foot for the year ahead and for all the years ahead. And if you want to make the most of every opportunity and avoid those pitfalls, then you need to have a plan, a roadmap. And that is exactly what Chris McIntire puts together for his clients there at McIntire Retirement Services. It is the game plan for retirement, your specific game plan for retirement. And if you would like to have a custom designed, written financial and retirement plan, pick up the phone, no cost, no obligation, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. So, Chris, as we've already talked about, there are a number of factors that we're not going to be able to control, but I think that there is maybe like a more advantageous way to plan for some of those than others. And just as an example here of one of the factors I'm talking about, we've talked about the fact that longevity is like the risk multiplier and can increase the risk of all of the other risks impacting us. So when we make assumptions about something, a risk such as longevity, don't we need to sort of assume like the side that could be the more worst case scenario? And with longevity, I say that and I already feel the irony of that comment, because if we assume that we're not going to live a long life and then we do, that ultimately ends up being uh, the more impactful and harmful assumption there. Whereas if we assume we're going to live a long life and then we don't, like, what does that really hurt, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sure does, buddy. And I reached down, I picked up a book written by you and I, our dear friend David Gaylor, who just passed away here. And David had said, look, you want to, in estate plan like you're going to pass away tomorrow, and invest like you're going to live forever with that kind of a mindset,
Mm.
and that's just when you said that, that's an analogy. And Peter and I, we love our buddy Dave, so
Yep.
we'll give a shout out to the entire family there. Yep, loss of a true good one in our industry, my friend.
Well, I'm glad you brought that quote back up, because that puts the thought much more concisely. Estate plan like you're going to pass away tomorrow, financial plan like you're going to live forever.
Yep.
That's a way to look at longevity. But all of these factors, these variables, Chris, I think we could look at in the same way. When you talk about taxes, as we have been, like, make the assumption that taxes are going to go up into the future. And if they don't, we're in better shape than we thought, right?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Yeah, it adds some icing to the cake. It's like, here we are at the end of 2024, and I've been meeting with clients. I'm like, look, is there anything you want to do? You've had a good year here. Now, you're going to buy a car, you're going to do a remodel on the house. This is the time we want to do that. Do we need to kick some money off of what you've made and put it over here in a money market so you can use it into next year?
Yep.
I mean, that's proactive planning there. And, nobody knows what the future is going to be. And, the everything I'm reading still says, looking good for the US economy here. And, there's certainly a lot of geopolitical risk over in the European side. Look, Canada's got issues here with their leadership, France, Germany, and then obviously we have the entire Russia, Syria, all that area. So a lot of geopolitical risk in the European factor, which would make the United States more attractive for investment. No question about it.
But it also, Chris, has the potential to impact what I think a lot of people naturally go to as the number one risk. Although we've probably made the case that it is not actually the number one risk, but it's what most investors think of, which is market volatility, right? And again, we sort of have to assume that the market is going to be more volatile moving into the future. If it's not, then hey, we're in better shape than we planned on, but we should assess how exposed we are and then put a plan together in such a way that we can take advantage of the market movements, but not be devastated if it doesn't go our way. Plan for volatility.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and look at Bitcoin. It has exploded since the election, and Peter probably owns some because he's young. And
I do.
then, yeah, he's smiling right
A
now.
little
Yep.
bit. Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
not much.
And then we look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which, as of the recording of the show here today, has had its worst run since 1978, at a time of the year when the market typically has its best trading days. Nvidia is down about 15% as of the recording in just a recent quick little run here, after being up 140%. So, certain parts of the stock market right now are very expensive. And, a lot of people, it's the fear of missing out, that are jumping into this Bitcoin after a 60, 80% run. And, and then Nvidia stock is another example, with the AI, and artificial intelligence is so broad based. Look at what utility stocks and whatnot have done this year, because they have to make the power to drive the data centers to drive the artificial intelligence. So, lots of different places to invest for lots of different people based off of risk tolerance. But, the market's had a pretty good run here for the last couple of years, 23, 24. And, is it going to run at that pace? I wouldn't bet the farm on that it's going to run up 25% next year, though.
Yeah, but Chris, we've talked about a number of factors and getting a handle on all of these things so that we can finish strong and start fresh and then move into the year and the years ahead in the best shape possible. That all boils down to having a plan in place. And you offer the ability to get that plan started and to put it in writing. You call it the retirement planning strategy session. Can you talk to us about what that process looks like? What does somebody experience when they come in to speak with you and the team at McIntire Retirement Services?
Sure. They reach out, talk to Heidi. Heidi gets an appointment on the calendar, and we'd like to send out a questionnaire ahead of time and let the clients fill that out and then return it. And a lot of times they'll email some of their statements and whatnot. And we always have people come in and bring more information than less information. And full statements make sense for us in a meeting. We're not just looking at the dollar amount. What type of investment is it? And sometimes we get screenshots. Screenshots don't tell us anything but the dollar amount. What type of mutual funds do you have? Is it an A share, a B share, a C share? What's the cost basis? Do we have tax things we have to pay attention to? Look at a tax return. What is your social security statement? So, we're not just looking at the investment side, we're looking at the entire empirical, because we're retirement planners, not just investment gurus, for example. What's the entire picture look like? And, we deal with a lot of different folks, Peter. Sometimes we're the quarterback to say, hey, you need to reach out to your accountant here. And, if you've got some other money that you want to keep at another place, somebody's got to be the quarterback here. And we're not an all or nothing firm. We are kind of an invitation only. We don't take everybody that walks through the door. We're kind of, at a mature point in our career here where we get to be a little more selective, and that bodes well for everybody. You can't be something to everybody. That's what we've learned. Yep.
But everybody does need a plan, ladies and gentlemen, and to have that conversation to get that process started, pick up the phone, give McIntire Retirement Services a call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. And Chris, to put you on the spot here a little bit, one or two maybe of the biggest stories that shaped 2024, or one or two predictions for what 2025 will bring, or maybe less crystal ball, what somebody thinking about retiring in 2025 should be doing now?
Understanding what their real risk tolerance is, not after a 25% run in the marketplace. We've got a neat program called Riskalyze that we send out that gives you some different scenarios. What downside are you okay getting given an upside potential? And I think right now, most people's risk tolerance is way out of whack from what it normally would be.
Well, good enough isn't, ladies and gentlemen. You need to have a plan to put yourself in the best situation possible. Just because we are where we are doesn't mean that we need to relegate our future situation to it is what it is. There's always room for improvement. We always have the power to make changes, but you have to make a concerted effort to get that done. So get your plan in place. Pick up the phone, give McIntire Retirement Services, Chris McIntire, a call now. Get the year started on the right foot. Get the plan in your hands to make 2025 and all the years beyond the best outlook possible. 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, it is another year of your game plan for retirement in the books. We always appreciate your guidance, and we look forward to another great year ahead.
Hey, my pleasure, everybody. Yep, be safe out there. Let's go Bucks.
Tune into Chris McIntire's full radio program and visit McIntireRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.